Overthrowing a crooked regime is not a simple task, especially a regime that has been standing for half a millennium. Overthrowing an evil regime, and in this video, we're going to use white supremacy as a case study. We'll talk about other empires throughout world history as a reference point, or we'll just use that in conjunction with white supremacy. But primarily, this video is going to be about white supremacy and using that as an auxiliary to describe how to overthrow an oppressive system. Again, we will reference other events throughout history to help drive home the point. But since we're living under a system of white supremacy right now, currently, that should be the focus at hand. Evil, dictatorial, even if it's in everything but name, kleptocratic systems are built on a sand foundation, meaning they will not last long when the people put pressure on them. But if you don't put pressure on them, they're just going to reinforce that sand foundation and have a whole nother 500 years left in them. They'll reboot like a computer that was logged off and just do their corruption all over again. Understanding this simple concept, the message seems pretty clear. Keep putting pressure on an evil, corrupt system, and you'll begin to overthrow it. Let's get into this one, family. What's up, YouTube? Freedom Mars here, back with another video. I'm outside right now, heading to the store, but I still got time to make videos, for my family, for my B1 family. So today we're going to discuss something a little bit different. Everything that I do is different because that's what we do here. We exclusive as hell. And I hope you guys enjoy the video. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe, hit that thumbs up button, and share it on your social media so people can get this information. Because family, we're in the middle of a war against white supremacy and we need this. All right, let's get into it. Since ancient times, many great empires who thought they were unstoppable have collapsed and the emperors have had their empires ripped right from underneath their feet. From the Persian Empire to the Roman Empire to the Holy Roman Empire, which eventually became Prussia, then eventually Germany. And of course, the Nazi regime, which was also an empire, also had the rug ripped from underneath their feet. Many empires throughout history who thought they had everything they ever could have wanted, and they probably did, and thought they were unstoppable, unfortunately found themselves in a predicament in which everything they knew and loved came crumbling to the ground. For the Romans, it was the barbarian invasion. I believe it was Attila in the year 400 AD who began the barbarian takeover of the Roman Empire. Now, of course, the Roman Empire didn't fall to about 70 plus years later, but it was a constant barrage of attacks. The Arab Empire, or should I say the Ottoman Empire, experienced a similar fate. But let's look at Rome real quick. Rome had a powerful military and a lot of resources. How did a fully armored empire lose to a bunch of naked barbarians? Again, they were also defeated by the Germanic tribes earlier, a few hundred years prior to that as well. So what happened? Well, Rome's economy wasn't in the best of states around the time Attila and his thugs came around. Not only was it not in the best of economic states, but because the economy isn't as powerful, that affects its military, and it also affects its internal politics. In other words, Rome was vulnerable due to having a destabilized economy and pressure on its politics. With the weakened empire being constantly attacked, literally, through warfare tactics by the Huns and by other types of barbarians, inevitably 70 plus years of attacks, if not even more than that, led to the collapse of the empire. It didn't have the money, resources, or organizations to keep up with the constant pressure put on it when it was in its economically weakened state. Remember that. So, in other words, the way you topple an evil, demonic, malevolent empire is persistence. Persistence is the word of the day. No matter how powerful your opponent is, if you can outlast them, last longer than them on the battlefield, have more energy than they have on the battlefield, have resources last longer than theirs, more food than they do, can go longer without eating, can go longer without drinking water, can go longer without sunlight, can go longer in cold, very low temperatures. If you can persist and outlast your opponent, that is the ultimate method to overthrow an evil empire, or any empire for that matter. You need to have the persistence to outlast them. Look at what happened in Afghanistan as a primary modern day example. 20 years in that country, almost 20 years in that country, invaded in 2001. United States went to Afghanistan in 2001 after the 9/11 attacks, when it allegedly was Osama bin Laden who orchestrated an attack that ran two planes, into three buildings on September 11th of 2001. Shortly after that, we invaded Afghanistan. Patriot Act was passed. All hell broke loose. 19 years after that, 19 years later, I believe it was August of 2021, maybe even September, Afghanistan, the Taliban wins. Now they control the entire country. They control the government. They control the military. Hell, they didn't just win. Now they have world-class infantry, military-grade equipment. Black Hawk helicopters, the latest guns. They got a few MRAPs and a whole bunch of other equipment. I believe it was approximately $85 billion worth of United States high-tech military equipment. They got night vision and everything. Hell, the only thing the Americans didn't leave them was an aircraft carrier and an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. And the only reason why that potentially didn't happen is because Afghanistan doesn't have a coastline. But 19 years of persistent resistance is why they are now in control. Persistence. Never let that word leave your vocabulary. You need to be consistently consistent, not inconsistent. One of the other things that's also very important when it comes to overthrowing an empire, not only do you need to be persistent, but you also need to have a code. Oh, we really getting into it now. Terrorist organization or not, the Taliban had a code. You're with us or you're dead. Now, the code doesn't need to necessarily be that ruthless or brutal, but the point is it gets the message across. You need a code that gets the message across. This is what needs to be done. And if that is not done, there needs to be punishment. Again, not saying I agree or disagree with what the Taliban is doing, but it's been effective and now they control the government. Even after they took over the government, you see now that they are executing and getting rid of everybody who violates the code. This is such a dynamic concept. I could literally make a documentary out of this topic alone. But just for the sake of keeping this video a little bit short, I'm going to conclude it here. So to wrap up everything that we said, these are the three things, four would probably be better, that you need in order to topple an empire. Persistence, resources, a code, and a punishment mechanism for those who either fail to enforce the code or those who fail to oblige by the code. Not just the people who are supposed to be on your team, but for those who are oppressing you as well. There are many ways to oppress people who are not on code, who are your enemy. You can economically oppress them, boycott their products and services. You can do other things. You can protest. You can turn up in the streets like we did in Minneapolis. And I'm from here, and I got first class tickets to my people doing what needs to be done to keep the world safe for black people. Those four things, accompanied with the will to survive and the will to live and thrive and build a brighter, construct a more prosperous future for our kin, for our children, those are the things that you need to overthrow an empire. You need the persistence to last 400 plus years like our incredibly powerful ancestors did through the killing fields of slavery, Jim Crow, the Devil's Punch Bowl, Black Wall Street, Wilmington, Seneca Village, Rosewood, the list goes on and on. Jim Crow, segregation, the war on drugs was really a war on black people. Police brutality, and we're still here. You need the persistence to go through all that and keep fighting. You need resources. You're going to need money. You're going to need people who have skills that are useful against evil systems like white supremacy. You're going to need espionage, people with the skills to spy. You're going to need hackers, people with the skills. You're going to need intelligence gatherers, people who can gather intelligence and information that can aid you in your quest. You're going to need a code of conduct. And for those who do not oblige by that code of conduct, they need to be punished, and punished swiftly, severely, and mercilessly. The code is the central mechanism of all of the other points. Because you can have resources and persistence, but resources used on what? Persistence for what? For what? For how many football games you can watch? Or persistence for how many times white supremacy can knock you down and you get back up until you knock white supremacy flat on its racist ass. You need a code. A code of empowerment for your people, the people who are attempting to liberate themselves from their oppressors. And when people don't follow that code, you punish them.